we did have any of the call, people coming back with the call, but I can hear the same.
Sorry about that, everyone. Djuma's disappeared, but that's okay. We're still here, although the Wildebeest are very clearly keen not to be. Was it something I said? I don't understand. I mean, I haven't showered yet this morning because I got up pretty early, but I didn't think I was that bad. I don't know what's going on. There's absolute chaos. They've all dashed off in opposite directions. There's chaos everywhere I look in that direction. Okay, there's some groups calming down now. And all of a sudden everybody started sprinting in every direction. They're still sprinting in every direction a bit further back. Somewhere, I would guess, would be a lion that instigated this. But as to where said lion might be, nobody knows, because they end up in this flat panic. The herd's just here running, and they run too, which I suppose makes sense. You know, when in doubt, follow the rest of the group in case they know something you don't. Bye! It was nice to see you. Back towards the Mara River. You'd think they'd have had enough of that place. Look at the back there. Everybody's going. Must have been something I said. And this is why we end up... One day you know where the herds are, the next day they've all vanished. You have to find them all again. Now which way to go? Which way to go indeed? There's more coming still. Look at this. In sheer numbers. Everybody trying to contact call to their lost family members. Poor things. And what fascinates me is there's one or two individuals that are just sort of standing there going, nah. We'll just stay where we are, thanks. The grass is quite nice here. Oh, I'm sorry, Lou. What you trying to tell me? Here we go. I unplugged myself again. I'm sorry. Sinatra would like to know if zebra have stripes because they don't want to be spotted. Very good, Sinatra, very good. They have stripes, yes. Well, one of the reasons is because they don't want to be spotted. They don't want to be singled out. And the stripes help to essentially make the entire group of zebras blend in together as one unit. Just by the way, I double-checked myself because there was something ringing bells in the back of my mind, which is why I didn't immediately munch into the sausage fruit, apart from all of the insects. Don't eat raw sausage fruit. It is strongly purgative, and that would have led to a very, very boring safari for all of you because I would have been on my way back home at high speed. You've got to ferment them or roast them or do something. They've got to be well prepared. You cannot consume them without preparing them properly. Most of the uses for sausage fruit is for a beverage, not for children under 16, 18 or 21, depending upon where you happen to be. Okay, I don't know whether to follow the wildebeest. They're now panicking off in the opposite direction. The most astounding scenes out here. I don't think it's easy to convey exactly what the numbers are like, even through the eyes of the camera, and obviously this is the next best thing to being here. Even through the eyes of the camera, I don't know that it's possible to convey the sense of scale. What the landscape looks like when it's just dotted with little black shapes everywhere. Very cool. Okay, onwards and upwards towards the Sausage Tree Pride. I think we've had quite enough of the fruit. Oh, Lauren, okay. I might have to switch to my wind-safe hat. Lauren, let's stop here so we can have a look at the wildebeest to answer your question, which is, what is the difference between the wildebeest here and on Djuma? Just waiting for that car to move ahead of us. The answer to that, Lauren, is they're the same species as the ones that you see on Djuma. They have white beards, which the ones on Djuma do not, and obviously occur in much larger numbers, which essentially means that their behavior is very different. You don't get the same focus on a territory in the way that you do with male wildebeest in the Sabi sand. The wildebeest here, they migrate. Well, that means that they've kind of got to let go of the idea of a permanent territory and gather together their harem and just hope that they don't lose any members during the migration, which they do on a regular basis. So it's a lot more chaotic. And that's, by the way, the people that are folding up the balloon. That's not them scaring the wildebeest, though. That, I don't know what that was about. There's still another stream of them arriving from Tanzania. Oh, and we're off again. I think I'm going to go have a look around and see if I can spot what's been spooking the wildebeest. Let's go back across to Hosana, who probably wouldn't know what to do with himself in the middle of this.
Welcome back, everybody. It sounds like our signal dropped out a little bit. We are in quite a deep drainage line here with Hosana, a young male leopard. So I don't know if you heard me saying about the crested barbet was the bird that was actually calling, but it has been calling a little bit while we've been sat here. Now, Hosana has actually rolled onto his back a couple of times and exposed his belly, and that's quite normal for a cat that's had quite a big meal. Now, you should be able to see his belly coming into shot now. So he has filled himself up on the impala. So that's going to be busy digesting, and that the process of digesting is going to be creating heat, and that's why mammals actually eat. So if you think about the cold and warm-blooded animals, so they're warm-blooded, they eat to stoke their furnace, if you like, and that produces the heat and that keeps us warm, whereas the cold-blooded mammals actually need to be warmed up by the sun so that they get to the right temperature so that they're able to digest their food. So we have different systems, so that's going to be creating a lot of heat in his belly and in his body. And the belly skin is usually quite thin compared to other places, so they roll onto the back, so it exposes their belly, so it can actually help to reduce the heat, and sometimes if there's a breeze, obviously that will help to keep them slightly cooler as well. But that looks like quite a nice, soft, sandy place just to chill out and allow that digestion to happen. Dear watcher, that is definitely one very sleepy cat. And I'm the same. If I've had a big lunch, I'm quite happy to go for a bit of siesta, I must admit. So hopefully if people can actually give me a hand and tell me who his father is. As I say, I thought it might have been Mvula, but it could be Tingana, so if anyone wants to help me out with that. As you all are aware, I love learning about who has actually been related to who, or who is related to who, and how everyone links together, because that for me increases the knowledge about the animal behaviour. Brilliant, thank you. So a lot of you are saying it's Tingala, so thank you very much, Craig, for pointing that out as well. So we weren't 100% sure, but thought we'd check with you guys as well, because you know the leopards so well, so it's always great to know. Now, I was actually trying to see if there is anything familiar that he shares with his other siblings, and we're talking about the necklace around the neck, and leopard spots are unique to each cat, and that's how we can identify them. But there will be characteristics or traits that leopards can share. So the collar can be quite normal characteristic that you find on leopards. Some leopards actually have quite a thick necklace. Some leopards may have a broken up necklace. Some might not quite have a necklace at all, but that is one of the features that you often find on leopard. And spots around the eyes as well. And quite often I've actually seen leopards that are related may have similar features as well. So with Kruger, she had the wow across her forehead, and that seems to have been passed down to Hosana's sister. And I've noticed one of the litter mates from the fourth litter seem to share the Y at the corner of the eye, like Mishu, the son from the third litter. So Roshni actually asking quite an interesting question about the genetics of the leopards, and can you actually confirm the male? Now, when we say the father of the cubs, it's really who we've seen mating with the females, if we're lucky enough to catch that, or if the male has been in the area. But unless you've actually been with them throughout the whole period of time, it is quite difficult to know for sure. The only sort of certainty you can have is the cubs with the mother, so that's the really certain one. So the father is a little bit more of the guesswork. And interestingly, I think they are making a study on the leopards in the Sabi Sands because everybody knows the history of the cats, and I think they are looking into seeing if they can actually identify the males with the DNA and the father, the parentage with the DNA. So that's going to be really fascinating to read about once the research is actually done, because the process of mating actually can occur over several days, and during that time it is possible, if a female isn't followed closely enough by a male, or if another male comes in and actually fights for the right to mate, it could be that the male who she's with could be actually chased off, or she might give him the slip and actually mate with another male. So it is possible they could have multiple partners. So as I say, you do have to take it with a bit of pinch of salt about the males. It's not clear cut who is the father, it's just who we believe is the father, all based on, as I say, who we've seen them with or who the male is in the area. And generally speaking, the females do seem to have a preference as well. So back when I was guiding a few years ago, Yambidi or Dan seemed to be the big male in the area. He seemed to be the strong male, and he seemed to be the mate of choice for Kruger. And then Mvula in those days was actually on the eastern boundary, a cheetah cut line, didn't really go past Gwari Pan, but apparently she did, or she was seen mating with him, and it's possible her fourth litter came from the mating with Mvula. And now Mvula's been chased off by Tingana. Hi Lauren, welcome on board this morning, asking if Kruger was unusual raising so many cubs, or have other leopards raised as many cubs as Kruger. And I'm sure they have, and that's one of the great things about meeting other guides and hearing all the other stories. And I think a lot of lodges have blogs now, so you're able to actually follow the progress of other leopards. But for me, as I say, what was amazing about Kruger is that she seemed to have success. Now obviously we're not sure what happens when in the first few weeks of Kruger actually giving birth to cubs, because the cubs, when they're born, they're tiny, they're like this, and they're so vulnerable, they're blind, you know, they're helpless, so she'll actually leave them in a den, and when she goes off to hunt, because obviously she needs to keep the milk flowing, so she needs to be in tip-top condition, so she'll leave the cubs in a den. They could be exposed to anything. If there's wild dogs around, snakes around, even something small as like a jackal could actually take a leopard cub. So in those very early weeks, it's very hard to know if she's actually given birth to more cubs than what you actually see once they come out of the den and you get to see them a little bit more often. So when they get to about 3 months old, you see them starting to climb trees, and you get a lot more visuals of them. So we're kind of taking it from those sightings, but they have been very successful, and we only really know of one litter that she lost due to a hyena coming in, and I think she was in the process of moving those cubs, and the hyena came and found her and actually took those cubs, and that was obviously very, very upsetting. But it is quite natural for predators to lose litters in that way. But what was amazing was that Kruger didn't seem to have that up until that point. And the fact that she had five litters making it through to adulthood was just really quite an accolade to her. As I say, she really was quite an amazing leopard. But even her mother, Safari, she had one eye for many years, and she went on until she was 19 years old, and I think probably had multiple cubs as well. So I think it's strong genes in the family as well. So Hosana hopefully will pass on those genes, as will his sister. Cheeky Beth, I'm hoping I'm getting your name right. Welcome on board this morning. Cheeky Beth asking if females have a good idea who the strong males are. And they're going to be looking for the males who have the loudest roar, and that will actually generally be the territory holder in that area. So showing off how strong they are. So they'll actually scratch on trees, and the highest scratches on the trees shows how tall they are. So they're quite a visual predator. So they'll be looking for those signs. So they'll actually be able to see for themselves as well and hear for themselves. So you generally get a territorial male who will defend an area, and that will generally overlap with a number of females. So it's thought in the Sabi Sands the males hold maybe about a 6,000 hectare territory. Females, it seems to be an average of about 2,000, which is quite small really for leopards. So there's quite a high density of leopards, but there's also quite a high density of food as well, which seems to be able to support them. So within that male's territory, if he's on the ball, he will actually check to see if females are in estrus, and obviously if he picks one up, then he'll actually trail her and find her. And as I say, if she's willing to mate, then she will allow him to mate with her. And the older males obviously tend to be larger, and if they're older and they're larger, they've survived. So of course they've got to have strong genes to have survived that long. So they might, even if a young male approaches, it's not likely they'll want to mate with them, just because obviously they don't know if they are going to be passing on good genes or not. So showing the dominance and showing how strong they are really does help for the female to choose them. The guinea fowl have been calling actually just over the ridge at the back, but they've actually quietened down quite a lot now. Hi, Safari Dean, asking me what I think of Hosana's size and what the biggest leopard that I've seen. Well, the leopards in the place where I was doing my research in Leidenberg generally were much larger than the leopards here in the Sabi Sands, and that could be because they have to deal with much cooler temperatures. Apparently it's the Bergman's rule, so in colder temperatures the animals are larger because they need to conserve heat. So the larger you are, the less surface area you have to lose heat. Whereas in somewhere quite warm like this, you can afford to be a little bit smaller and make sure that your surface area is large enough that you can actually expel heat, which is obviously very important to try and keep cool. So the cats there, I think, were reaching maybe 80-85 kilos, and certainly the big male that I saw there, Hosana is a little bit small, but he's not very old. All the videos can help me out for when he was actually born. I'm thinking he's about 18 months old, but I've been able to correct. So, ruler.
Now, unfortunately, there are some gremlins that are plaguing the other vehicle, and so you're with me now. Now, unfortunately, Mvula didn't come back. We sat and we waited for quite a while. He went and drank at One-Eyed Pan, which is what I thought he would have done. And then he started coming back towards the main road. But unfortunately, there's a big termite mound that he often lies upon. When I was at Djuma, we used to see him there quite regularly. And he went up the mound and then fell asleep. So we'll have to try again this afternoon. I think he might come back this afternoon. His movement was back towards Djuma, so I'm hopeful that this afternoon will be like that. The reason why I've stopped here is because there was some dwarf mongoose running around, but it seems like they've all disappeared. I was hoping that if we stopped, often they're quite curious little animals and they'll come and sort of position themselves on the road to watch what's going on, but it seems like this particular group is not wanting to play the game and come out at all, so I think we're going to carry on. Now, we're just checking this northern boundary just for any signs of anything really. The Nkuma Pride is still in Arathusa. There's a Matimba male still that side as well. They're not together, but he's also in that particular area. So they're not this side yet. So I thought I'll just check the Buffelshoek boundary, see if we've got any signs of anything around here. Also, I wanted to check this burnt firebreak section. It's a section that there's often lots of birds around, so worth coming and having a little look to see what's happening. Now, talking of birds, I wonder if it will stay nice and still for us. It looks like it might, is one of our prettier dove species that we get that's sitting just over there, and you can actually see its green wings quite clearly today, so hopefully it will stay there. But there's an emerald spotted wood dove, and you can see where the emerald spotted name comes from just on the wing there. Oh, now it's flown away, where those little emerald spots themselves, and it's really nice when you get some sun on them. Those little emerald spots shine this bright green sort of color, and they are very pretty. Now, there is also a blue spotted dove that occurs in South Africa that just has the blue spots instead of the emerald ones, but unfortunately we don't see them here. They're quite a rare species and mostly occur to the north of us, so if you go up towards the Zimbabwe border you can see them in a place called Louis Trichardt. Now, I'm going to carry on and see what I can find and probably head towards the hyena den a little bit later. But while we do that, I believe James has a potential crossing that's building up in anticipation.
Well, there certainly seems to be a little bit of anticipation building up. Good morning to all of you. I hope you've had a lovely morning so far. I've certainly had a lovely morning so far. I like these wildebeest and zebra. I've had my early morning coffee. It tasted probably a little bit better than the crocodile dung infused waters that the wildebeest are now drinking. Of course, it's also infused with the rotting humours of their colleagues who have fallen by the wayside during the course of this migration season. Hashtags Fire Live, of course, as always. Any of the questions or comments that you might have, you may send to us at will. Now, this is very interesting, and I'm just going to ask the final control to prepare for a Facebook Live. What we do, in case you're wondering, if there is some sort of interesting migration action, what happens is that we will click it on a stream and we broadcast to a number of Facebook pages at the same time as broadcasting to you. But we won't do that just yet, because this could easily just be a drinking party as opposed to a crossing party. Although there does seem to be a lot of groundswell of support for some kind of entrance to the water. Some leaving though. Oh, there's a topi, wildebeest, zebra. They're massing down. This could turn into something quite special. But often it's just about drinking, and often it's just about pressure from behind that makes them disappear over the water's edge, and nobody really knows why. Let's have a look at this little group of zebras having a drink there. And there seem to be very few crocodiles at this stage. I don't think we need to go live to Facebook just yet. Let's see first. When the first one takes the plunge, we will go for it. But for now, let us just watch the peaceable drinking of topi, wildebeest, and zebra. Now, I don't know about you, but I always think that hooves must be the most inconvenient things to have when you are crossing rocks and uneven ground. Imagine taking, what can I imagine? What could you imagine? Taking a block of wood, two sort of blocks of wood, half the actual size of your foot, strapping them to your shoes, and then trying to walk across slippery rocks and into water and over uneven ground. And imagine how difficult that must be. Now imagine trying to coordinate not just two legs like you have, but four. I think it takes an astonishing amount of coordination and a really amazing sort of nervous response. In other words, a really amazing kind of speed of reaction in order to correct the slipping motion that must happen every time your feet slip on the rocks. Ooh, one of them's getting a little bit further in. Let's just scan around and see if there aren't any crocodilos. That's the affectionate term for crocodile. There's one. I can see you lurking in the deep there. But I must confess that having looked at the skull of a crocodile and the size of the brain case, I remain convinced that much of their ability to survive is based on the fact that they live in the water as the only kind of water predator out here. I think with greater, brainier competition, they wouldn't eat nearly as much as they do. Now, Seek Truth, you're saying that the zebra are saying, hey guys, we can't let the giraffe show us up like that. If you weren't watching earlier, okay, let's go live to Facebook. We have a crossing in progress, everybody. Quickly, quickly. Straight towards the crocodile. Straight towards it. Straight over it. Oh, he's down. Got him. Hello everybody on Facebook, welcome to this crossing. Will you join us at a traumatic time? A topi has just been taken by a crocodile here in the Mara River. And it's the first topi we've seen try to cross today, and I'm afraid I think that's it for this topi. I know this might be harrowing for some of you. It's certainly harrowing for me. And if you don't want to watch it, I quite understand. We won't stay on the death for too long. We will go back to the crossing because I think there's a very large crossing in place. While it is thrashing around very unpleasantly, unfortunately, it will go into shock now, everybody. There is a huge crossing. These topi inspired this whole group of zebra and wildebeest and the rest of the topi herds to go across. They've been massing for some time now. There they go. There's one more, no, that's a rock there that you can see bottom right-hand side of your screen. Let's go back out and have a look here. I don't think we need to watch any more of the thrashing death of that topi. Let's just watch what's going on here first. Some still a little bit nervous to go in, some coming to have a drink, some probably most very confused about whether they should go into the water or stay out of it. Now, I'm not sure how quickly you managed to join us on the Facebook Live, but this topi nearly got over the top of the crocodile, and then unfortunately, in fact, possibly for the first time I saw the crocodile flip around and show a tremendous amount of agility as it grabbed the topi, which is now under the water and mercifully gone. Hello, Safari Wildman. You say this is magical and great footage from the Mara. It certainly is. Let's just have a look-see here. The crocodiles tend to lurk in this region there where I'm looking. I'll just look up a bit there. But everyone else seems to be crossing completely unharassed. And I got to tell you, I think you've got to be so unlucky to be taken by a crocodile. Many, many animals do get taken, of course, every single day. But you've really got to be pretty unlucky. And I keep going back to the same statistic. 60% of the animals that die during the migration season die of what we might term natural causes. Now, there's nothing unnatural about being eaten by a crocodile, but what that means, of course, is it's illness, old age, drowning, I don't know, breaking a leg and not being able to feed properly, that sort of thing. And so for you to be part of the 2 million throng herds of animals that come through this area, for you to be snatched by a crocodile, I suppose, well, it's a little bit like the chances of dying falling out of your bed, you know. Some 20,000 people in the United States die falling out of their beds every year. It's not quite that ridiculous, but it really, you've got to be pretty unlucky. The rest of them now seem to have given up. But others here, you see, I mean, there could easily be crocodiles in there, and the zebras just, well, knocking about like they're at Starbucks for their morning coffee. I'll have a skinny latte with my piece of crocodile dung-infested water. Here we go, 3 wildebeest. No. Yes? No? Yes? Okay, let's go. Come on, children. Now, what's interesting here, that looks like a cow with 2 youngsters. I think it's highly, highly unlikely that they're both hers. It's not impossible, but by now, remember, those calves have weaned. They were born in January and February. They've weaned completely now. Well, a whole another crossing taking place of some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 animals. Let's go back and have a further look. No more crocodiles that I can see in the murky depths here. And you know, of the animals we've seen being taken this year during the migration, the topi have made up an, I would say, disproportionate number. Alrighty, I think we'll probably leave you now to get on with whatever it is. If you're at Starbucks or something like that, I'm probably not allowed to say that. If you're at a coffee shop somewhere, well, I enjoy your coffee, or if you're having dinner, do that too. We'll keep you posted on Facebook if anything else develops at this crossing. Are we still live to Safari Live? Right, we're still live to Safari Live, everybody. I think we might go live again. Let's just have a look for some crocs. I was a bit late on the prediction on the last one. Hello, cheeky, geeky Beth. You say you wonder how much adrenaline plays a part in the crossings. Beth, I think that adrenaline plays a huge amount in the lives of all these animals. They are wired all the time. They seem to be in a state of constant terror, and their reaction speeds would certainly indicate that there is adrenaline coursing through their veins almost non-stop. And I mean, I've read bits and pieces about impala and how they basically do live in a state of just under shock. So they're constantly with an elevated heart rate, adrenaline being produced so that they can use explosive amounts of energy and muscle power when they need to. Right, apparently Tristan has got some kind of relaxing remedy for you now. I've no idea what it is. Let's head across there.
Well, we've luckily managed to find one of our favorite little herds. So it's the short trunk herd that we had yesterday afternoon, and I was coming just past towards Gallagher, and they've popped out next to the road. So this is one of the bigger younger ones that we have within the herd, but it's the biggest of those younger ones. And then the short trunk female is off to the right hand side. They seem to be a little bit on the skittish side this morning, though. I tried to sort of go towards where they are, and they moved off a little bit, so I've just parked on the road and stayed here, and they now seem to have settled down a little bit and have started to feed. And it is the perfect weather if you're an elephant. There's no wind, it's overcast, which means it's not too hot, and so it means that they'll be spending 90% of their day probably doing exactly what they're doing now, which is feeding away and feeding that enormous appetite that they tend to have. So it's really good to catch up with them again. I wonder if they did go down to the dam cam during the night. I would imagine that they would have, given where they were yesterday. They needed water at some point. They might have, I suppose, gone to Gallagher if they came past on the western side of the lodge. It amazes me how they're able to feed off these kind of trees. You can see there's very sort of spiny and not one that you would want to kind of feed off or as a person have to grab, but these guys are quite gentle in the way they do it. And look at how they use those little fingers, so to speak, at the end of the trunk and able to then manipulate that bush into the mouth. It's very cool to see. Always love seeing elephants on a grey overcast day. I don't know why, there's just something about them when they're in these kind of grey conditions. They blend in so well. You can see, especially now in winter when there's no leaves on the tree, their coloration and all the branches and sort of vegetation around them, they actually blend in incredibly well. And they can be quite difficult to spot sometimes. You wouldn't say that there was 4 elephants in the frame that Senzo just showed you just now, but there is. The other 3 are off to the right of this particular elephant. They are hiding behind a fallen over marula, so I actually can't really see them myself anymore, and they've sort of just melted into the bush. Now, I believe a lot of you are excited to see this herd because it is one of your favorites, and I know they are. It's an incredible sort of story and an incredible herd to watch and to see how they get along. And the fact that it's also a smaller herd has something about it. It's kind of endears one to them. And the fact that they're not in this massive grouping and it's just the 4 of them and they walk around together. I always enjoy it. Was it 4 or 5? I think it's 4. Yes, it is 4. And that's how many there are. Now, they are just departing the scene, so I'm going to quickly try and get back because they're heading towards a nice open clearing that we can follow them. Now, I know this area because this is where we had that sighting of Shungile, Mvula and Tundi that time. So there's a little open clearing just on the other side of this thicket, and I'm sure they're going to stop hopefully in that area and we'll be able to actually get a view of all of them. Now, I've just got to get through here. There we go. There's the rest of them. And there's Short Trunk herself right in the front, so that's her over there. Let's see, is she actually feeding off grass at the moment? It would be interesting, because yesterday I was saying that I didn't see them feed off any grass whatsoever, but it seems as though she might actually be feeding off grass today. It would surprise me, because I had a look this morning when we were off air. It was just the grass is absolutely dead and barren and dry. There can't be any nutrients in it whatsoever. I suppose they could pull it up and eat the roots and make use of that moisture content and nutrient content that's stored in the roots itself, but I would imagine that most of their nutrients at the moment must be coming from those leaves that you see on the buffalo thorns. That'll be a prime target for them, but also the roots and bark structure of most of these trees, because they'll store a lot more nutrients than what the grass would. And you can actually see she's digging, so she is looking for some sort of root or tuber structure that is underneath the ground. You often see it where there's groves of bush willows or terminalias. So those 2 types of tree has big sort of root system, and they will be able to dig those out and make use of them. The bush willows and the terminalias both house a lot of water and nutrients, and so the elephants do target them heavily. Now, as we sort of go towards the summer months as well, now that we're kind of in the dead of winter and we're starting to edge towards summer, there'll be a few trees that will have big bulbs forming. So one in particular is called the tall white squill. Now, the tall white squill is a sort of herbaceous plant that grows at the beginning of the summer, and their tubers actually are already forming underground, and you'll find the elephants then dig them up and they eat those tubers quite readily. So I'm sure we'll see some of that as we go, and especially if we get a little bit of rain like this, those tall white squills then start to form underground and make a perfect food source for the Ellies. It's nice to see that they've calmed down a little bit. I think it was just the initial sort of noise of the vehicle, but now everything has gone into complete relaxed mode. They're feeding ever so gently as they go, and it really is beautiful just to sit and listen to them and watch them as they go about their business. And you can also notice today not very much flapping from the ears. So because it's quite sort of cool this morning, we had a cold start to the morning, and now there's very little sun. There's really no need to be flapping those ears extensively to cool down. So you find the ears will sit pretty much flat against the body, and only every now and then will we see a little flap happening. There's a bit of a sign that they were at water. There's a few drops of water on the ears. Is that a nice bush girl? She almost looks very content in the way that she's feeding off it. You can see the eyes slightly closing. So, Michael, you're wondering how much food an elephant needs to eat? Well, Michael, it depends on the time of the year. In summer, because of the growth of the plants and the amount of water that's available, the plants tend to be far more nutrient rich in the summer months. And so you'll find elephants in summer will eat about 4% of their body weight, whereas as we go into the winter and things dry out and the vegetation loses a lot of its moisture and nutrient content, so they have to start eating more, and they'll move up to about 6 to 7% of their body weight in the winter months. So on a female of short trunk size, she probably weighs, I would say, about 3.5 tons. So whatever 6% is of 3,500, that's how much she would be consuming per day. On average, it normally works out to, on the big males, they'll be eating between sort of 250 and 300 kilograms of food a day, which is close to 600 pounds, or just over 600 pounds, whereas the females probably closer to about 500 pounds that they'll be feeding on in a day, which means that they have to spend 99% of their day doing exactly that, is feeding, to try and sustain such a large body and get that amount of food. You can imagine how much work it is when you think about the weight of grass and you think about the weight of leaves to get, 4 to leaves to get 4 to this morning. When it comes to the elephants, they're in no rush to go anywhere right now. They've found themselves a perfect place. The other thing about where we are now is there's actually quite a high content of knobthorns, and it's going to be interesting to see if any of them actually make use of them. So all those tall trees that you're seeing are mostly knobthorns, and they are a tree that elephants target heavily in winter months, particularly because of the bark that they can get off of them. So what they do is they stick their tusk in and they'll strip off layers of bark that's high in nutrient content, and they'll feed off that. And actually some of the trees that we see in the background here are all dead because of the fact that elephants have been here before and they've ring barked those trees and ended up killing them. So this particular tree over here is a marula, which was, I think, probably in all likelihood pushed down either by a big male, given the size of it, or it could have been a lightning strike. You can actually see there's a bit of a black tinging to it anyway. So sometimes with lightning, is they will hit trees like this and the tree then goes over. Difficult to say without having actually seen what's happened, but there is a black tinge to it. So if it was pushed over prior to that, then there has been a fire that came through here when this was down because of that blackening that you see. Now, Keith, you say it's always amazing to see the short trunk herd and to see how she's adapted to surviving with that sort of, I would say, disability is probably the best way to put it. And it is incredible to watch and incredible to see how it really doesn't affect her. If you look at her body, there you go, you can see at the back there's no sort of thin appearance. Her hips are not protruding out, so she's really healthy. She's getting all the nutrients she needs, and even in the drier times, and we were discussing it yesterday with the fact that we've been through this drought last year, and then this year has also been a dry year. The fact that she's looking as good as she is means that she's really adapted quite well to having that shorter trunk and has been able to work out how to still get nutrients. The lucky thing for her is that her trunk is still quite long. So it's not quite the same as, some of the other elephants that I've seen that have had snare wounds where it goes right up towards the tusks that really battle to be able to get food. At least she has some sort of trunk that's able to wrap around branches and leaves and grass and allow her to feed from there. Now, we're going to spend more time with our herd because, they're going to go into a nice big open clearing and it's going to be quite pleasant. And while we watch our little one gently pick at the leaves between the thorns, I believe Tara's got something grey and often likes to get muddy just like the elephants.
Oh, Welcome back, everybody. Unfortunately, we lost signal where we were, so I think we were extremely lucky to have had the images that we did. And we had to leave our little boy. He actually just got up as we left, just repositioned himself under his tree where his kill is. So we had to leave that area. So we're back on Cheetah Cut Line now. We've just bumped into some guinea fowl. If those of you who might be new to the drives don't know what the guinea fowl look like, these are the guinea fowl that we were talking about, were alarm calling just behind where we were with. Now apparently I keep saying Hosana wrong, so I need a slight correction if I'm saying it slightly wrong. But where he was. So they're all sifting through the dust for any signs of seeds or anything like that might be left behind, and it looks like the warthog's going to come and investigate what they're looking at as well. The two that were on your screen just before, they were actually kneeling down. Oh, there we go. But it looks like they're kneeling, but it's actually on their wrist. It's their wrist joint, and they actually form calluses on there, so it almost acts like wrist pads, so that they can get closer to the earth and they can use the really tough snout like a spade and dig into the soil. And especially this time of year, it works really, really well. I mean, can you imagine using your nose to dig up the soil that's rock solid? It really is quite incredible how hard their nose actually is. Now you can see the huge warts on the face, which is where they get the name from. Some people actually call them water hogs, but they're not, they're wart hogs. And you can tell the male and females apart by the number of warts on the face. So males have 4, females have 2. So there you go, you can see the male there. You can almost see him struggling a little bit to dig. How nice is that? Guinea fowl and warthog together. It's a small sounder. It looks like there's about 5 in the group. Seek truth. That's just wrong. Seek truth's now fancying breakfast. Either I'm interpreting that comment wrong, or you're wanting... Well, I'm thinking you're wanting bacon. They're finding their own breakfast. It looks like you can see some of the crests aren't as large, so that's going to be the offspring from this year. I think that's a group of offspring there. It looks like there's an adult coming in. You can see the face is a lot brighter blue. Now that's very common with the birds. You might find that some of the offspring actually have the coloration of the adults but not as bright, and that's to stop the adults from actually attacking them, thinking they are other adults that they need to keep in check. So that's very normal to have the offspring paler. Hi Jono, good morning to you. Hope you're enjoying the warthogs and the guinea fowl this morning. Jono wanting to know if the guinea fowl are related to turkeys. And I don't think they are. Maybe someone can just check up the genus for me. Now it's all to do with the different levels, so they might be distantly related, and if they are, they fall under what's called an order. So you go down each level, and the levels that you go down, so when you get to the genus, that means that they're very closely related. So maybe someone can just check the genus for me, because that would mean if they are very closely related or not, but I don't think they are. But if no one comes back, then I'll have a check for you this afternoon. There we go. You can see the warthogs showing how they're kneeling on the wrists quite nicely there. So we're going to let the warthogs finish their breakfast. I think Tristan has still got the herd of elephants, and it's really nice to catch up with the elephant with the bit of trunk missing and see how she's getting on. So I hope you're enjoying some time with the Ellies as well.
Well, Tara, it's the best thing to spend time with elephants, let alone the short trunk herd. So always quite happy to be in amongst them and to sit right near them while they're feeding and just enjoy their company. There's something relaxing about being with the herd of elephants, so always good to see them being back in our area and moving around. And this particular little herd is often around, and they're here a lot around the camp. We see them moving up to the dam and then going down to quarantine and feeding in and out of Vuyatela. So it's a nice herd to sort of monitor and keep up with. But I've been watching her quite closely and just watching how she does things, and it's quite interesting how she feeds pretty much like a normal elephant. The only thing that she can't do is grab things. Because she doesn't have those two little fingers, it seems as though she battles with moving certain things that other elephants would do quite quickly, so little branches and things. So it tends to be a little bit more bull in a china shop approach, much like the bulls are, in that she just knocks everything away using her feet or her trunk and is not nearly as delicate as some of the other elephants. But it still works, and she's able to get to all the food that she needs to get to, and you can see she can still feed off even grass by wrapping that trunk around. She's just brushing off any bit of soil. And she's actually eating the roots of this particular grass at the moment. She moved the buffalo thorn out the way. There was a broken buffalo thorn branch, and that allowed her then to be able to see, or to get to plant items that maybe some of the other herbivores haven't been able to get to. So things like wildebeest and zebra and all the other grazers that have moved through, she's now able to get to those. Janine, you're asking if female elephants ever fight with each other. Well, not seriously, so it's not in the same way that male elephants would fight, and they would go and even clash to the point of breaking their tusks and things like that. But females every now and then will push one another or move one another out the way, especially the matriarchal female. She can sometimes be a bit of a bully to some of the other younger females in the herd, and you do see them kind of having a little bit of a tussle every now and then, but it's nothing major. It's not like they'll square off head to head and they'll bang their heads together and push each other around. That's really reserved for the bulls. The females tend to just kind of nudge each other along, especially if they're trying to get the rest of the herd to go in a certain direction or to try and get them out of a certain place. Then you'll find that there's a bit of nudging and pushing going along. But in terms of actual fighting, no, not really. The females are quite relaxed with one another, and there's a lot of communication that's happening outside of body language and pushing one another. There'll be a lot of that vocalizing that's happening, that they'll be able to work out what's going on, and how they're communicating with one another will be able to stop things like fights breaking out amongst the females. It's only the males that do it because they're trying to mate with females, and it's evenly matched boys that can't decide via size and communication that they then come to blows in a more physical manner. Here we go. It looks like they're all going to come together, and we'll get all of them walking right in front of us, which is perfect. There we go. There comes the three, and the fourth one is just off to the right at the moment. But I would love to know where this particular herd comes from. There must be a split off of another herd. You often see it with elephants, that they do split off. Senzo, can you look at the back left leg of that female that's standing there? So the one that you're on. There we go. It looks as though there might be a little wound in there. Can't see nicely, but it looks as though a little bit of potentially blood that's coming down. Let's just have a closer look. Hopefully she'll come out from behind that tree and we'll be able to see nicely. But there is definitely what looks like a bit of blood coming down there. It might be wrong though. Now, it's not uncommon for elephants to have small little wounds, particularly the males. Females, not so much. You generally find that the females tend to stay away from, as we've been saying, from fighting and things like that. But there is every now and then that a branch will catch them on the inside of the leg or something that can cause a bit of blood to seep out. And difficult now, the angle that she's sitting, I can't see nicely, but you can just see there's that sort of wetness there on the inside of the leg. Interesting. We'll have to wait for her to turn a little bit before we can see nicely what's going on over there. What amazes me though is you can see that the youngest one, who is must be the daughter or the son, I can't see if it's male or female, of the short trunk elephant, is still very happy to feed with the siblings. So it's tucked up right there with the other two and is using them, and the other two will protect that one. If, let's say, I had to go too close, you'll find those two big elephants will even protect that tiny little baby. So even if short trunk is slightly away from them, she knows that it will be protected by these older ones. Now, a lot of you are hoping that our baby does something goofy. Well, I saw the other day that Taylor had quite a comical sighting of a little elephant doing its Bush Olympics and trying to get over a branch, and it was quite funny to watch. And I always love when baby elephants are in one of those moods where they're running around and chasing birds and trying to climb over stumps. It's highly entertaining when they are like that, so hopefully our little baby will do so. But I think our baby's in stationary feeding mode at the moment. I don't think there's too much in the way of playtime now. It's time for breakfast, and maybe playtime will be afterwards. Now, I believe Jamie has a bird, so before it flies away, even though it is a scavenging bird, let's go across to her.
I don't think our Rupels is planning on flying away anytime soon. It seems to be well content and settled. At the beginning of the sunrise safari, I mentioned that I'd received coordinates of a martial eagle returning repeatedly to where she had a kill, and I suspect, unfortunately, that it has been taken from her. Or at the very least, it's gone now, and the Rupels has decided to settle in to grab the scraps. I don't know how often vultures scavenge from martial eagles, or if they do, and if they ever chase martials away from their kills. Martial eagle is a big bird. So is a Rupel's vulture. I'm not entirely sure who would win, or if they would risk injury, or if perhaps this Rupel's is just a coincidence that it happens to be here. This must have been the tree that she was using, just because I can't see any other potential trees. And this is the area where I've seen a juvenile martial eagle a couple of times. So unfortunately, I'm guessing there's no sign of that kill anymore. I think it's been finished off, which is a pity, because it would have been really fascinating to see what it was. It must have been something quite large for her to keep returning for 2 days straight. I'm scanning the trees to try and see if I can spot her, but I imagine she's already off and searching for the next meal. Oh well, it was a fun mission. It was like a treasure hunt. Well, treasure hunt where you get GPS coordinates, so a bit easier than a treasure hunt rather than clues. Okay, Rupels, we shall leave you be, and we shall continue on our way. I think I saw some lions, which might be a nice way to finish off our morning. Oh, speaking of giant avian predators of the sky, let's go across to one of the smallest carnivores. That was terrible.
Oh, welcome back. And, oh, look at that, on cue. We have a dwarf mongoose. Now, the cats that we just saw, leopards, will actually hunt the dwarf mongoose. And you can see all the holes in this abandoned termite mound, and they would have been excavated by the dwarf mongoose, so that they can actually use this to hide away at night. But if there is a predator around, they will give a high-pitched alarm call and let everybody know, and everyone will dash back into the termite mound for safety. So it could be this one's on sentinel duty. I've seen one or two scurrying around, so it looks like they have started foraging this morning. You can see all the dung that's just at the base of the mound there, that belongs to them. So that's how we can tell if it is actually active or not. So, just coming through there about the relatedness of guinea fowl, and just reminding me that actually guinea fowl are related to pheasants. And I think, was that from Turkey? Thank you. And partridges. Yes, that's the ones. So I'll have to check how far back the turkeys and the guinea fowl split, but I think they are quite far back. So did a mongoose just dive off the top then? Thanks, Roshni. Much appreciated there. And these little guys, that's just so funny, that especially if you get them just before they head out on their forage, and they'll groom each other and have a bit of a play fight before they start the day. Oh, are you toileting there, adding to the amount? Thanks, Teresa, saying I've been the best mongoose smoocher. I did call to them a little bit, and they have obliged us today. They are so cute. But as I say, because they're so small, they are susceptible to predation by other animals, like even the relatives of the dwarf mongoose, the slender mongoose, can and do hunt dwarf mongoose. And unfortunately that's the price they pay for being the smallest carnivore in South Africa. This one doesn't seem to be too fazed by that. They're just so busy. Hi, Miss Sky, asking if the cats will dig in the mound for them. I've never seen them dig into the mound, because that mound is rock solid as well. So when the termites actually build the mound, they actually take the bits of sand and cement them with saliva, so it is really hard. So it's quite difficult for animals to actually break into there unless they've got huge claws like the pangolin or the aardvark. So they are very well equipped for getting into the termite mounds. But the cats, their claws, even though they're strong, they're not as strong as the aardvarks for getting into the termite mound. And it sounds like Jamie's had some luck with her Marshall Eagle, so I think it's definitely worth checking that out in the Mara.
We have indeed had some luck, and she's not far away from where we were at all. We just happened to have our backs to her, so as soon as we turned around we were able to spot her without any trouble. It's a bit of a tricky area and the light's a little bit difficult as well, but I've been scanning this tree and I can't see any sign of what it is that she was feeding on. I don't know if it was in this tree or if it was in the tree with the vultures, but there is our Marshall Eagle. Isn't she beautiful? Looking a bit windswept actually this morning. And of course all of these birds are monitored to increase the understanding that we have as to what amazing creatures they actually are. Look at the power of those legs and those talons. Marshall eagles, for those of you who are new to these live safaris, a marshall eagle is capable of catching and killing a small antelope. And they basically use their momentum and their massive bulk as they come shooting out of the sky, and essentially they'll crush the skull of whatever they land on, combined with the unbelievably powerful claws. So there she is. As to what she's been munching on, your guess is as good as mine. Hello, girl. This is an eagle we'll probably regularly see around here. And you say that a treasure hunt involving GPS coordinates is called geocaching. I did actually know that, and the only reason that I knew that was because Rebecca was talking about it, and she went wandering off one day to go and see if there was a geocache somewhere. It is completely beyond me, but I understand it sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, apparently Rebecca found one in Hoedspruit. Whatever one is, geocache.
Pokemon things.
Pokemon things. Mim says, isn't that the Pokemon things? Like Pokemon Go, only different. I know geocaching has been around for a while. I've just been a little bit behind the times. Okay, we don't have the best view of our martial eagle, so I'm actually going to start moving that way to where the lions are, because I don't think VM would forgive me if we were to ignore the lions for a martial eagle completely. Fuzzman Sparkles, I did see a crowned eagle. Saw a crowned eagle up flying over our camp. We actually see them quite regularly. They spend a lot of time around the escarpment, and apparently they nest there as well. So yes, we've got the big three: martial eagles, crowned eagles, and the black eagles, all in this general vicinity. Black eagles obviously are cliff dwellers. They prefer to be in the mountains, but we have seen crowned eagles. I don't think we've managed to get one on camera yet, but we have seen them. And I've seen a long-crested, couple of birds that you're less likely to see in South Africa, or at least in Djuma in South Africa. Okay, let's go see what these lions are up to. Probably still honeymooning, I imagine. Where's everybody looking? Which direction? Oh, right in front of us, duh. At those tawny things over there. Hello, my boy. Ah. Mating in the Mara. Hello, kitty cats. You look contented. This is pretty much exactly, well, very close to where we saw that mating pair, the two mating lions, last week, when we saw one and then another one popped up. And the dominant male lions of this area: Fang, Halftail, the big dark-maned male, I'm not sure what his name is, and then another mystery male that knocks about. When I was with the sausages the other evening, they were joined by a male lion, and I don't know which male it was, but it was one of these boys, I imagine. He was very beaten up and scarred. And then he came wandering back in this direction halfway through the night. So there we go. Not a bad way to end off our morning. Lions, martial eagles, biggest land predator, biggest sky predator. And our lions looking decidedly as though they've been up all night, occupied by things other than hunting. Hey, my boy. The migration was here. There's now not a wildebeest to be seen, really. Vast open space. You've seen earlier today just how quickly they can move when they want to. No wildebeest. Just very sleepy lions. I wonder if these are the lions responsible. No, they can't be, actually. Maybe. Yesterday morning I drove past 3 abandoned dead wildebeest in the road. All killed by lions, all left behind. And pretty much uneaten. They went to the vultures and the scavengers, the hyenas. Charles, absolutely this is a cat's paradise right here. The Mara is a cat's paradise. Shade and cover where you want to, open space so you can see. Plenty of food available, plenty of water. Lots of hyenas, which of course is the mortal enemy of the lion. That's an exaggeration. They just coexist and they're in competition with each other. But absolutely it is a cat's paradise. Plenty of scratching posts. I don't know how much catnip there is around, but otherwise I think they're relatively content with their lot in life. Dopey in the background. Here's the topi. Let's go back to our lion so that we can answer. I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the name. It sounded like M. Bell, but I'm not sure that's correct. Oh, ML. Right, here we go, ML. And at the moment my comms are blasting my eardrums to the point I can't hear. You wanted to know if he's covered in flies or if he's got mange. It's not mange, it's flies. Look, animals out here do get mange. I was reading an article from the cheetah researchers yesterday about why it's a terrible thing to let the cheetah jump on your cars. And one of the things is because they do, the animals out here do carry mange. And most of them are healthy, most of them are able to fight it off without any problem. But that's not mange, that's just flies. And of course, with the number of wildebeest around, the flies will have increased exponentially. And with all of that rain that we had as well. Had a massive downpour here. Which is good, because it was looking very, very, very dry. Michael, I'm not sure about how long these lions have been dominant in this area. I don't think for very long. I think long enough to have fathered the various cubs that we see, so you're looking at a minimum of around about 6 months or 9 months or so, because the oldest cubs in this area, like the Agama cubs, are 6 months old. Chuck in a 3-month gestation period and you're looking at a time period of around about 9 months. Whether or not they are in fact the fathers is not, we don't know the answer to that, but they think they are. They definitely think they are, judging by their interactions with the little ones. So minimum 9 months. Beyond that, I'm not 100% sure. Perhaps those of you who are watching out here, who've been following the stories of the lions, or perhaps you've been here as a guest, and you know how long these lions have been dominant around the marsh area, close to Little Governors, you can send that through on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. But I'm not sure. I can only give you the minimum. Rocky and Doreen, you would like to know another question that it's difficult for me to answer, how old he is. I think this is Fang, and I would put him at around about 5 or so years old, maybe a little bit older, even though his mane hasn't fully come in, just judging by the condition of his teeth. But again, I'm not 100% sure that this is Fang. I think it's him, but I haven't had a chance to actually see properly, and that would be my guess. You can see the mane hasn't fully spread down the shoulders, so he's not quite in his prime. But remember, just like human beings, lions can grow at different rates. Sometimes genetically their manes just take a little bit longer. So I'm guessing 5, but I'm honestly not sure. And the way that you go about the aging process is to have a look at a lion's teeth and the extent to which their mane has grown and covers their shoulders and their chests. But it's not a foolproof process unless you've actually got an opportunity to closely examine them hands-on. Or otherwise, if you know exactly when they were born, which helps. You can hear a fish eagle in the background. Let's just give it a few more minutes. I think they're going to do this for the rest of the day, the rest of the morning. Seems like a good way to spend a morning, dozing in the warm sun that is finally chasing away the chill that was around us. Now, our lion's dozing. Tristan, of course, does not have that luxury. Let's go and see where he's going.
Now, we have got 2 of our more beautiful birds, but as you can see, when there's no sunlight, they're not nearly as pretty as normal. So normally we would have bright colors coming from these guys, but because of the lack of sun, it actually shows off their sort of true color. Starlings actually have black feathers, but through light refraction and the way it comes off, that's what gives them their iridescent blues, and unfortunately when there's no sun, they're not nearly as pretty. Now, We've checked around Galago Pan because I was having a look. Tara said that apparently Shongile was seen coming south at some point, so I was just having a little look to see if her tracks were there, but no sign. But what there was tracks of was 2 buffalo bulls from last night. They'd left a nice calling card in the form of a big dung pile, but they went northwards towards what looks like up into those drainage systems towards sort of Tambuti Dam area. So no sign of them there. I did do a little loop around and check, but unfortunately no luck. But good to see a few buffalo tracks. It's not something that we see too much of lately, so nice to see those and nice to see them out and about, and hopefully they will be here a little bit more. But no sign, like I said, Shongile. Hyena Den unfortunately is not active either. I think they're all busy up on the Manyaleti boundary because we've had a situation where there was vultures and hyenas that were up on the Manyaleti boundary all squabbling over a dead impala. So I would imagine that's where our hyenas are this morning. They're still busy eating and finishing off that last little bit of an impala. Now, so James Richard, you say you wonder if elephants and leopard will be a reoccurring theme on my drives. Well, if it is, James, I certainly shall be very happy, because I will take elephant and leopard any day of the week, every drive if I have to. It's always quite nice to see both of them, so I'm certainly not complaining at all. And that seems as though they did a role reversal, because yesterday it was the short trunk herd first and then a leopard afterwards, and this morning it was leopard and then the short trunk herd. So we'll just have to keep that rolling as long as possible. Like I say, certainly won't complain if that is the case. It's been good to have 2 leopards in 2 drives. I'm feeling quite happy about that. It was a pity that Mvula was such a short sighting. It was kind of just a little brief glimpse of him, but I'm sure this afternoon he's going to be back, so hopefully we'll be able to find him this afternoon. Now, in the distance on my left hand side is a little glowing light that is shining, and I believe there it is. You can see our UFO, and there's Tara. She's about to show you guys something to do with calling cards that we were discussing with the buffalo, but she's got a different animal.
So yes, I think I saw them before they saw us. Haha. Big Brother is watching. So yeah, I thought I would show you this. We might have a last minute Who Dung It. Hashtag Safari Live. You can see it's quite large compared to some of the other pieces of dung we've been looking at over the last few days. And if I break it open for you, you can see there's quite large fragments of grass. So not as fine as what you get with some of the smaller species. So see if anybody's quick off the mark with the Who Dung It. Let's say the actual shape might help you as well. So just to help you along, this animal doesn't have a 4-chambered stomach because of the matter being quite large inside. So it's relying on what would be our appendix, that's the cecum in between the large and small intestine. So they don't get as much goodness out of the food that they eat as the 4-chambered stomach animals, because the 4-chambered stomach animals have the benefit of having everything being broken down in the stomach. Mr. P saying ooh. Yes, it is ooh, but it's so fascinating though, because you can really get as much information from it as a track. So this is quite hard, it's dried out, so we know that whoever left this wasn't here for quite a while. If it was nice and fresh, we'd know, okay, they might be hidden in the bush somewhere. So the 4-chambered stomach animals do actually have the benefit of having everything broken down the stomach, so they have the benefit of the large and small intestine taking out the nutrients. But as I say, with these kind of animals, and it sounds like Raisa has hit the nail on the head, well done Raisa, it is a zebra. So unfortunately the zebra aren't able to take in as much nutrients through the first intestine, the small intestine, but as it goes into the cecum, they can break down the cellulose from the grass they're eating, and the large intestine will actually take in the nutrients from there. But as you can imagine, the large intestine, it's very short, so there's That's why we get such large dung, because there's a lot of nutrients wasted that comes out the other end. So well done, Raisa. Very quick off the mark there with our zebra dung. So we're going to leave that there. She'll clear that away. Sassy B, it is fascinating. Dung is fascinating. It can also tell you the health of the animal as well. Oh, and you know what? I am so jealous of Jamie right now, and of you guys, seeing the migration in the Mara live this morning. Absolutely fantastic. Enjoy that with Jamie.
It is fantastic indeed, and I feel very grateful. Oh, here's a lost waterbuck. Looking a bit confused as to how he ended up in this situation. He's not a participant in the migration. He's just a hapless bystander. I agree, Tara. We're very, very fortunate, and I wake up every single day very grateful for being able to experience this. Watching the sheer numbers of wildebeest and zebra wander through the Mara is quite extraordinary. And such a massive area for us to explore as well. Look at that. It's a river of wildebeest moving back down towards the marsh. Oh, look at that. It's really, really difficult to give you a sense of scale. We do our best, but let's just put it this way. 2 million animals is a lot of animals. And it's hard to fully convey what it feels like to be in the dusty Mara, enjoying the sounds and the sights and the smells and all of those sorts of things. There are just so many animals moving through. It must be wonderful to be a lion in the migration, or a hyena, or a vulture, actually. The vultures must have the best time, because they don't even have to compete or wait for the lions to leave the carcass. They just move in. It's quite special indeed. Now I'm going to have to move the car, because somewhat inevitably somebody wants to come past, or is going to want to. I'm sure they're going to want to say hello as well. Stanley times 3, you say it is a utopia. I like it. I like it. That's better than our GNU puns. Not quite. It's as good as our GNU puns. A utopia indeed. That is exactly what it is. And the good news is that we will be here for the rest of the migration. Isn't that wonderful? Ha ha ha. Sorry, I've got stiff stomach muscles. Every time I choke and cough, my entire diaphragm seizes up. Okay. There we go. I'll steal Louise's pun to end it off and say topium. No, I can't even say it. Oh, no. It's all gone wrong. No. Topi the morning. No. I can't do it. I can't do it. Right, on that note, it's time to do our goodbyes and our thank yous. So a big thank you to Viam, first of all, for his wonderful camera work, considering he was up until late last night and up early this morning. And, of course, to our team on Djuma, we miss you all, and we do send our best wishes. We can't wait to see you all again. Most importantly, of course, the thank yous that go to you, and to Louise for sending, and Kirsty for sending through your questions and your comments. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you at some point for the Sunset Safari. Bye-bye.